So Representative Mike Flood of Nebraska, as the Congress is on their recess now in August, they went back home and he did what he's actually supposed to do. You're supposed to go home, talk to your constituents, get some feedback, get some insight on how they're feeling about your performance so far during the year.
With 450 million FEMA dollars being reallocated to open Alligator Alcatraz and 600 million taxpayer FEMA dollars being used to now open more concentration camps, and ICE burning through $8.4 million a day to illegally detain people, how much does it cost for fascism? How much do the taxpayers have to pay for a fascist country?
Americans went to the polls in November, and they had a choice between a Democratic candidate that had an open border, no enforcement, fentanyl, drugs, human trafficking. And they had a choice between that and a candidate that said, close the border, get illegal immigrants out of our country, stop the fentanyl, stop the human trafficking, stop the drugs, stop the crime, stop the violence. That's what Americans voted for. Americans voted for a border that is secure. And I support the president enforcing our immigration laws.
Representative Flood, the question was how many more hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars are we going to pay for this fascism? Instead, he decided to talk about how we had a choice between two different people during the election. One is looking to open the borders and invite in drugs and crime and human trafficking. There's this guy that's in the White House who released a bunch of criminals. So let's check off the crime part. He's done nothing about the drug issue because, what are you doing? He sent off some letters about prescription drugs. Is that the drug issue that he's talking about? Because last I checked, there's still drugs all over the streets. And also, there's this whole thing about human trafficking. This is probably one of the most infamous human traffickers of young girls and women ever in American history. And he's covering it up because he's a part of it.
I have read a dozen or so books on authoritarianism and fascism. You said in Seward that you were not a fascist. Your complicity says otherwise. Have you ever spoken out against this administration and its Project 2025, which is a fascist machine?
Fascists don't hold town halls with open question and answer series.
That's your answer, bro? So your support of a fascist who's openly changing and taking over the judicial process, telling the Congress what to do, breaking all kinds of laws, taking people off the streets illegally, disrupting Americans' lives. Let's stop talking about how you're not in support of a fascist, especially since as you're answering those questions to rains of booze coming down on your head, your answers to make sure that you point out, and President Trump, and President Trump, and President Trump, and President Trump sounds like a dictatorship to me. This guy's getting his ass handed to him all over the place.
It talks about two big changes to the Medicaid program. One of those changes is that if you are able to work and you are able-bodied, you have to work. If you choose not to work, you do not get free health care. You do not get free health care. Okay. So here's a question. Do you think that people who are 28 years old that can work and refuse to work should get free health care? I don't think that a majority of Nebraskans agree with you.
I feel like majority of the people in that room disagree with you, Representative Flood. Actually, it's the framing and it's the way that they pose these types of points. A 28-year-old person who can work but refuses to work, should they get free health care? Well, who's this 28-year-old person? What kind of work have they done before? Why are they not working right now? There's this narrative that points out you lazy Americans are pieces of trash. I hate you. You never want to do anything except prop up billionaires. The fact that billionaires are consistently making record profits constantly over and over and over again, I think shows that Americans work. The only way a billionaire makes that much money is because people work for them hard as they sit there on their yachts and collect more money and find new ways to take tax breaks in order to gain more on their wealth. they don't get any free health care. We all pay for this stuff, bro. We all pay for it. We just don't get what we're paying for as they're looking to take more and more people off of Medicare and Medicaid. And as that happens more, and it's already starting to happen, it's going to be even more of a disaster.
What plans does the Congress have for providing reasonable cost health insurance to Nebraskans?
Well, one of the ways to bring down our commercial private payer insurance is to not have as many people on Medicaid. Because what happens? Medicaid pays a much lower reimbursement rate than a commercial payer does. And so when there's a difference between those two, the commercial payer ends up paying more and more and more to make up for the difference. Money does not fall out of the sky. It does not grow on trees. It comes from all of you. And you pay your health insurance. I wish there was a world we could live in where everything came from the government and it was free. But that will never, ever, ever happen. By the way, I do not believe that, but I do think, though, when you look at keeping our personal private, for those of you who are on commercial payer private health insurance, you're seeing 20% increases. And why is that? Because we've extended Medicaid to so many people who refuse to work, people who don't want to go to work, people that are illegal. And when you do that, everybody else has to pay. Somebody always has to pay. That's the way it works. It would be great to come to a town hall and have an answer that everybody would agree with, but that is the reality of our situation. The more you make healthcare free, the more everybody else with private pay insurance also has to pay.
They work strictly for the rich. They literally think that everyone has the same amount of money as the rich people who bribe them to say things like this. Let me recite what the question was. How are you going to put this forward where people can have reasonable cost health care? He says kick more people off of Medicaid. The same party that said we're not kicking anyone off of Medicaid and Medicare. The ones who said that over and over and over again and said that anyone who says that about them is an absolute liar. We're going to take down the ads that say so. But how is it suddenly that's their argument that they're kicking people off of Medicaid so that they can help pay and lower the cost for private insurance? Private insurance, whose whole entire objective is to raise costs and make as much money as possible. That's what private entities do in a capitalistic society. They're looking to make money, except in this case, they look to make money off of people's health. So one more part. So the commercial, as more people, as they said, kicking them off of their Medicaid, those folks can't afford private health care. And what then will happen is they'll turn emergency rooms, which has already been the case for a long time, into their doctor whenever something is disastrously finally wrong with them. And they still can't pay those exorbitant ER bills either. After that happens, who pays for that? Who pays for the amount of money that those doctors and the hospitals don't get reimbursed for? Because, we're taking money out of it and giving it to rich people. Those hospitals still close, people still get sick, and people end up in exorbitant amounts of debt. Talking about that money that they say they're taking in, someone asked them about how they're looking to pay down that debt.
Given your full-throated support of the bill, whatever we call it, and your view of the facts, I'd like to know how you expect to pay back all of this debt that is going to be layered onto our grandchildren because we're not willing to make our rich part of our society pay their fair share.
So what's interesting about that, and I think it's a fair question, two things are happening here. People in here are upset with me that I voted to cut $2 trillion in spending from the budget.
As they're chanting tax the rich, and he completely ignored the question, he said, people are upset in this room are upset with me because I want to cut more things from you to pay more of those rich people. I think you just confirmed his question. How are you going to pay down this debt if you continue to give money away to the rich? He said, you guys are mad at me just because I'm giving money away to the rich and I'm cutting programs that you paid for? because I'm cutting those programs to give them more money. How could you be so upset at me? And I should have looked it up to see how much more time he's got left, because they were chanting vote his ass out. They were chanting tax the rich as he was standing there with the shield in front of the rich going, I will defend you against these peasants that I'm stealing money from. They're so wrapped up into their bubbles, they really think this is some kind of a winning argument. The defender of the rich, Representative Mike Flood.